The next page is for The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask on Nintendo 64 and is advertised as a Dream Hint book. It features a vibrant scene with various characters from the game scattered across a grassy landscape. A section highlights game information including the title in Japanese, the publisher Nintendo, indicating it's currently on sale, the price, genre as a 3D action RPG for one player, and mentions it requires a memory expansion pack and supports a vibration pack. Another prominent section is titled Developer Interview Encore, suggesting a developer interview feature is included. There is also a spoiler warning and a note indicating the hint book's coverage area, specifically mentioning the Great Bay Temple and the Rockville Temple. This page is part 9 and focuses on the Great Bay Temple in The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. The section is titled Fire Arrow and Ice Arrow Combination. The page features a detailed map of the Great Bay Temple across 2 floors, 1F and B1/B2, with numbered locations. There's a checklist table to keep track of rescued stray fairies within the temple. Screenshots show gameplay within the temple, and text boxes provide instructions and explanations, including the meaning of the arrows on the map, which indicate paths to take when water is flowing from pots in Room 2. This page is a walkthrough guide for The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. It gives step-by-step instructions to navigate a dungeon area, starting from Room 2 and progressing through to Room 17. The guide advises using Zora Link's abilities to swim and interact with underwater switches and mechanisms. It highlights the importance of using specific items like the hookshot, arrows, ice arrows, and fire arrows to solve puzzles and defeat enemies, such as Bombkiss, blue Tektites, Ward of Flames, blue Chukus, and geckos. Key actions include using spin attacks on barrels, freezing water flows and enemies with ice arrows to create platforms or blocks, and using fire arrows to defeat specific bosses and their defenses. The walkthrough directs the player to collect items like the map and compass, and small keys to progress through the dungeon, ultimately aiming to obtain the boss key and return to previous rooms in a specific order. This guide details progression through specific rooms in The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, specifically focusing on the Great Bay Temple. Room 12 involves manipulating water flow with red switches and water jets. Room 18 is underwater and accessed from Room 19, which requires using ice arrows to control a water wheel-powered lift to reach Room 20. Room 20 utilizes a seesaw and green switch, again using ice arrows to stop water. Activating green switches in Rooms 15, 20, and 22 creates water jets for further progression. The guide also covers the boss, Griorg, and offers attack strategies involving Z-targeting and dodging its attacks. Finally, the guide explains how to obtain a heart container fragment after clearing the temple by finding frogs in various locations: Laundry Room, Boat Cruise, Zora Cape Waterfall, Icona Canyon, and Great Bay Temple, and talking to them while wearing the Garo mask. This guide covers the Icona Graveyard and Icona Valley in Majora's Mask. To progress, first, use Epona to jump fences and bypass a rock wall to reach the graveyard. Next, obtain the Captain's Hat by waking and defeating giant Gaikotsu, stall children, with the alarming sonata during the day. Finally, learn the Song of Storms by interacting with stall babies in the graveyard at night. On the first day, dig for a piece of heart. On the second, find a bottle. And on the third, learn the song. Key locations like Dampe's Shack, the graveyard, Music Box House, and Stone Tower are marked on a map. To cross the high rock wall, options include the Garo's Mask, obtained via horse race, the hookshot, or using ice arrows on the Octorok to create a platform. The next page is a guide section titled Well Bottom to Icona Ancient Castle Rockville for The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. It focuses on how to obtain the mirror shield within the Well Bottom dungeon and proceed towards Icona Ancient Castle. The guide outlines steps to acquire the mirror shield by giving specific items to Gibdos in the Well Bottom, detailing a shortest route through the dungeon marked on a map with points A to H. It also mentions getting the Gibdo mask. The guide suggests preparations before entering the Well Bottom, such as purchasing milk, magic beans, and Deku nuts, and using the Song of Storms to get milk at Milk Road. The page includes screenshots of gameplay, maps of the area, and item descriptions to aid players through this part of the game. This page is a strategy guide for Icona Castle in The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. It outlines a route to conquer Icona Castle, starting with entering from the well and navigating through different rooms. The guide details using items like arrows and Deku flowers, activating switches, and defeating enemies like wizrobes and floormasters. It mentions obtaining the Elegy of Emptiness melody, which is essential for progressing in the game, particularly in Rockville. The page also includes maps of Icona Castle, showcasing room layouts and numbered steps to follow, along with screenshots of gameplay in these areas. It's a step-by-step walkthrough to help players navigate and complete Icona Castle and get the Elegy of Emptiness. This page focuses on the Rockville Shrine dungeon in the game The Legend of Zelda, Majora's Mask. The title emphasizes exploring the dungeon and solving its mysteries. A section called Hidden Zelda mentions that the Rockville Shrine is located in Clockville. There is a fairy finding check section with icons and checkboxes, likely for tracking collected fairies within the dungeon. The page displays a detailed map of the Rockville Shrine, illustrating different floors labeled as 1F, B1, 1F, and 2F, representing normal and reverse dungeon layouts. Screenshots with accompanying text boxes describe gameplay elements like using the light arrow, solving a puzzle involving a crow statue in Clockville, the purpose of the Great Fairy Fountain, and the function of a dungeon switch that inverts the entire dungeon. This guide details a dungeon walkthrough for The Legend of Zelda, Majora's Mask. It begins with navigating rooms blocked by sunblocks, solved using spin attacks, mirror shield light reflection, and Goron Link's bombs. Key items are found in treasure chests and by defeating enemies, including small keys and the dungeon map. Zora Link is used for underwater passages and hookshot use. Deku flower jumps provide access to higher areas and shortcuts. The boss fight with Boss Garo involves targeting, backflipping, and sword attacks. Light arrows, acquired after the boss, are crucial for defeating enemies like the Eye Goal and removing sunblocks in later rooms. Puzzles involving switches, rotating rooms, Tenchi Gyakuten, and air currents are also described, requiring the use of Goron Link and Deku Link. This guide offers strategies for navigating The Legend of Zelda, Majora's Mask. Players are advised to use Z targeting and back jumps in Room 10 to acquire a key and advance to Room 16. Section 13 details block manipulation to open a door, utilizing light arrows on red switches. Fighting like likes and wizrobes in Section 14 emphasizes defensive tactics, the hookshot, and leads to a treasure chest. Room 15 requires a Deku flower jump for a small key. Section 16 uses the boomerang and Deku flower jumps to reach the next area. Goma is defeated by bombing it and then using sword attacks for a key. Room 18 involves a shock switch, hookshot usage, and spike avoidance. The twin mold boss fight involves becoming giant, attacking the head and tail with sword and spin attacks, using magic jars, and prioritizing sword attacks. This guidebook excerpt for The Legend of Zelda, Majora's Mask, details several side quests. Anju's grandmother can stay up all night, rewards the player for listening to her stories until morning. Kamaro Charismatic Dancer's Mask describes obtaining Kamaro's mask by playing the Song of Healing for the Dancing Ghost in Termina Field. The Rosa Sisters Kamaro's Direct Step section explains how to teach the Rosa Sisters the dance by wearing Kamaro's mask. The guide also covers obtaining Piece of Heart items through events like listening to Anju's grandmother's stories with the Night Mask and retrieving an item from the Stockpot Inn toilet. Finally, Toto and Gorman Head Night Milk Bar details an event at the milk bar requiring Gorman's mask and participation in Cremia's milk delivery, leading to a reward from the Gorman troop leader. This page is a Zelda staff interview called Let's Talk About Majora's Again, featuring Koizumi Yoshiaki, the game system director, Imamura Takaya, the art director, and Takano Mitsuhiro, the script director. Koizumi talks about joining the Zelda team to help with boss battles for Ocarina of Time after working on game experiments. Imamura explains how he became the art director for Majora's Mask after working on F-Zero X and Star Fox 64, and mentions that Tingle's model was based on caricatures of staff from the Information Development Department. Exalamet. Takano discusses script direction and character personalities, focusing on Tingle, who is described as a 35-year-old map seller dreaming of becoming a fairy, a concept suggested by program manager Nakao. The page includes portraits of the three interviewees and an illustration of Tingle. The interview discusses the development of The Legend of Zelda, Majora's Mask, by developers including Takano, Imamura, Koizumi, and Aonuma. They prioritized character design, imbuing even minor characters with personality and actions, with Tingle as a notable example created by Imamura. The game's concept centered on a 3-day time frame, allowing players to experience the lives of the townspeople. Inspired by Link's Awakening, Side events and sub-stories were crucial. Developers aimed for freedom of exploration and interaction, building on concepts from Ocarina of Time. Koizumi initially proposed a different game concept, which evolved into Majora's Mask. Despite initial suggestions from Miyamoto to make a Mario game, the team were given some creative freedom. The developers emphasized the positive reception of Zelda games, especially in America, and aimed for depth and replayability within the game structure. This page is about the creation of the moon's face in the game The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. The developers Imura and Koizumi talk about the design process, starting from Imura's initial sketches. Koizumi mentions that the face on the moon was inspired by a senior staff member, and the decision was made quickly. They discuss shifting the game's world from a typical medieval setting, drawing inspiration from the world adjacent to Ocarina of Time, and the space world presentation. The page includes an image depicting the iconic Majora's Mask moon looming over Link riding Epona, surrounded by various characters including the Deku, Goron, and Zora forms of Link, and other figures from the game. The page also touches upon boss names, specifically discussing Odowa and considering names like Ugo Aish or Hashirua. They mention the upside-down concept from Stone Tower Temple and the detailed thought process behind boss character design, even down to subtle movements. They debated boss names, considering Ugo Hedge or Hashirua, but ultimately settling on names other than Odowa, before deciding to keep Odowa and change the others. This guidebook page details an interview with the developers of The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, discussing player feedback and design choices. They analyzed player comments received at a dedicated email address, noting appreciation for the game's hidden details and the connection between events like getting Romani's mask and completing Cremia's milk delivery. The developers anticipated players familiar with previous Zelda games, acknowledging concerns about potential difficulty for new players. While the game wasn't deemed too difficult, negative feedback centered on the save system and the time limit. Players also compared the game unfavorably to Ocarina of Time. Camera control issues as Deku Link and the challenging boss Gyorg, particularly with Zora Link's controls, were also discussed. The developers acknowledged the difficulty of Gyorg and considered less stressful control options. The interview concludes with a "to be continued" note, promising more insights. This page is for a Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask ranking event where readers can vote for their favorites in various categories to win prizes. You can submit your vote by postcard. The voting categories are 1. Favorite character. Vote for 3 characters, with examples like Anju-san, Odowa, and Hylian Princess. 2. Favorite mask. Choose one mask from the 24 masks displayed in the game. An example given is the Baku Recto mask. 3. Area. Select your preferred area, such as the sea snake's nest. 4. Favorite music. Vote for your favorite music track, like Icana's Sonata. 5. Misunderstood strategy or difficult part. Describe a time you made a mistake or found something challenging in the game. Prizes include 1. A Zelda poster signed by Mr. Koizumi and Mr. Imamura, noted as a rare, made-in, USA item. Quote, quote, quote. 2. A Nintendo Company guide, the latest edition, and also signed. Quote, quote. A strategy guidebook, meant to be solvable in 3 days, edited by the magazine's editors, aimed at beginners. Quote, the Nintendo 64 game, The Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time, with a strategy hint book. 5. Enshin Def. Game Boy rewritable software The Legend of Zelda, Link's Awakening DX, mentioned as Mr. Koizumi's debut work. The deadline for submissions is July 10th, and the results will be announced in the September issue of 64 Dream magazine. The page also features examples of misunderstood strategies in the game, shown with in-game screenshots. The next page is the front cover of the Dream Hint book for The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. The page features the game's English and Japanese titles prominently displayed above the subtitle, Strategy Hint Book and Dream Hint Book. The artwork shows Majora's Mask looming in the background with Link and a guard in Clocktown depicted in the foreground. A text box alerts readers to spoiler warning, stating this hint book contains detailed strategy hints. It mentions that those who want to clear the game on their own should be careful. The book's strategy scope is listed as covering the opening and up to the first dungeon. At the bottom, it notes, the 64 Dream 7 Go Furoku book in book. indicating this is a bonus book included with the July issue of the 64 Dream magazine. This page is titled Majora's Mask New System Thorough Check and serves as an introduction to the game's mechanics. It features an image of Link riding Epona at the top. The page explains the at-a-glance save system and the easy-to-understand 3-day system explanation diagram. The diagram visually breaks down the game's 3-day cycle, from the first day to the final day before the moon falls, and details how the save system operates within this time frame. It specifies what elements are saved, such as masks, sea items, ocarina melodies, and dungeon maps, and what is not saved, like dungeon progress, sub-events, and hidden fairies, which reset to their initial state upon saving. Game information is presented, including the title, The Legend of Zelda, Majora's Mask, the publisher Nintendo, a release date of April 27th, a price, the genre as 3D action RPG, and that it's for one player and compatible with the Memory Expansion Pack and Rumble Pack. The next page explains that the game, The Legend of Zelda, Majora's Mask, truly begins after you obtain the Ocarina of Time. It emphasizes the concept of repeatedly playing through 3-day cycles. The page highlights the Bomber's Notebook item, explaining that it records encounters with various characters in the game world. As you repeat the 3-day cycle, you'll notice how different characters are living out their own dramas and storylines. The guide encourages players to actively engage with these characters, offering help and getting involved in their troubles, as this will lead to discoveries and results beneficial for your adventure. The Bomber's Notebook is described as a useful tool to track these character interactions and events. The bottom section provides a visual representation of the 3-day cycle gameplay flow, starting from the first day, progressing through the 3 days, and then saving on the final day to return to the morning of the first day. It mentions that after saving, you always restart in Clocktown. This page introduces Termina as the parallel world to Hyrule in The Legend of Zelda, Majora's Mask. It emphasizes that despite seeming similar to Hyrule, Termina is a completely new world. The page details that Clocktown serves as the central hub and starting point of the game, from which players can access various areas of Termina. It highlights that Termina Field acts as a central location from which you can reach different regions in all 4 directions: east, west, south, and north. Specific locations are showcased with screenshots and brief descriptions. Clocktown and Termina Field, described as the starting location with accessible routes to other areas. Romani Ranch, portrayed as a ranch inhabited by beautiful twin sisters, contrasting with older men in the game. Termina Field North and Snowhead, depicted as a snowy mountain region, home to the Goron tribe who are strong but dislike the cold. Termina Field West, Rockville, and Icona Valley, presents this area with a rocky and desolate landscape. Termina Field East, Great Bay, and Zora Hall, shown as an ocean region inhabited by the Zora tribe, described as peaceful and warm, but hinting at possible incidents. Termina Field South, Deku Nut Castle, and Woodfall, described as a swampy region with a Deku Nut King and castle, a location not seen in previous Zelda titles. The page promotes the game's expansive world and encourages players to explore the new areas of Termina. This guide section covers the beginning of The Legend of Zelda, Majora's Mask, focusing on the initial area. Step 1. Chase the Stall Kid, guides players through the woods, using Deku flower jumps as Link to reach the mask shop. The Stall Kid, wearing a mysterious mask, robs the shop owner, who is very angry. Step 2. Search for the Lost Fairy, directs players to Clocktown's north side. Players must find a lost fairy in the town square's water between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. and return it to the Great Fairy, using Deku flower jumps to access the location. The guide includes screenshots, map references, and gameplay tips, such as rupee costs and Great Fairy dialogue. This walkthrough from a Japanese guide for The Legend of Zelda, Majora's Mask details how to reach the observatory and obtain the telescope. First, you must find the 5 bombers, a group of troublemaker children, to learn the password needed to access the observatory. Find Jim, the bomber leader, in Clocktown's north, practicing with balloons. Use a soap bubble shot to burst his balloon. Next, after gaining access, head to the observatory through the eastern passage. Talk to Jisan, the old man inside, to receive a telescope. The guide then instructs you to use the telescope to view the Skull Kid atop the clock tower. The page provides locations and screenshots to find all 5 bombers throughout Clocktown. Joining the bombers requires passing a test. This page is a walkthrough guide section for The Legend of Zelda, Majora's Mask, focusing on game progression steps. Step 5 explains how to exchange the Moon's Tear for the land ownership certificate, involving a Deku flower near the clock tower, and trading with a business scrub who wants the Moon's Tear obtained from the observatory. Step 6 details how to get the Ocarina of Time back, explaining that after midnight on the third day, the clock changes to a counter, and you must reach the top of the clock tower to fight Stalkid, who is floating in bubbles. Defeating Stalkid will make him drop the Ocarina of Time. Step 7 guides the player on learning the Song of Time's reverse from Kakashi at the observatory. Kakashi will teach you 2 songs, including this one, after listening to your melody played on the ocarina. The page also includes tips for before leaving Clocktown, mentioning using the ocarina to save and learn the Song of Healing, and using Deku Nuts effectively against Deku guards. Heart piece locations in Clocktown are also briefly described, such as on a wooden pillar in North Clocktown, and at the Swordsman's School. The bottom section highlights the importance of saving your game in Majora's Mask. This guide explores Clocktown in The Legend of Zelda, Majora's Mask, focusing on locations and activities within the first 3 days. The Post House offers a minigame after 3 p.m. Players can find the Great Fairy's Fountain and reunite the scattered fairy. The Deku Nuts play spot is a minigame for 10 rupees. The Training Ground provides beginner and advanced courses for rupees. The Treasure House offers a lottery for rupees. The bank allows rupee deposits for wallet upgrades. The Bomb Shop and Sundries Shop sell essential items. The Manny House, open after 10 p.m., has limited stock. The laundry area features the mysterious character Carvey. The page utilizes screenshots to illustrate the locations and actions available to the player. This page of the guide focuses on providing gameplay tips for The Legend of Zelda, Majora's Mask. It features various characters and locations within Clocktown, offering advice and hints for players. Characters highlighted include Tingle, who sells field maps, Mayor Donateur and his wife Madame Aroma, Milk Bar Latte owner who resembles Talon, Anju from the Stockpot Inn, and Honey and Darling running a shop. The page gives gameplay advice related to different locations, like the Treasure Chest Shop minigame, the Shooting Gallery, the Stockpot Inn, and Honey and Darling shop. It also mentions the Carnival of Time and the importance of talking to characters to progress through events, especially highlighting an event involving 5 groups if you talk to Jim using Deku Link. This guide section for Majora's Mask covers the area from Termina Field to Deku Palace. It focuses on southern exploration, emphasizing time management. The player is guided south from Clocktown, facing enemies like Dodongos and Blue Bubbles, with tips on using Deku Nuts. Advice is given on the limitations of the field, blocked seaward paths, and the inability to obtain underwater treasures. The guide highlights important locations and events. One is the location of a heart container in the southern Termina Field, obtainable after defeating a Peahat. There is also mention of a business scrub who steals items. Players are also instructed on using the Astronomy Club telescope to watch Deku Nuts. The section concludes with information on defeating Peahats in a hidden hole for heart pieces, with a warning for players with low health. This guide section focuses on the mysterious forest and swamp areas in The Legend of Zelda, Majora's Mask. Step 2 covers rescuing Kume, involving the Swamp Tourist Center, Magic Old Lady's House, and obtaining land rights by exchanging the Moon's Tear. It highlights using Deku flowers, navigating the fearsome Spider House, and provides daily maze solutions that change daily, with Kotake appearing on days 2 and 3. Step 3 details the boat cruise available after Kume's recovery in defeating Odolwa, which grants access to the picture box. Step 4 focuses on learning the Song of Soaring by using a Deku flower and examining a stone monument, offering fast travel between specific locations and listing owl statue locations. This page is from a guide and focuses on the Deku Nuts Castle Woodfall section of the game, specifically the operation to rescue a captured monkey in The Legend of Zelda, Majora's Mask. It details Step 1. Infiltrate the castle courtyard, providing a maze strategy route to reach the king's room. The guide suggests talking to people for hints and navigating the maze by avoiding enemies and using underground passages. It mentions getting magic beans and fresh water from the bean shop to grow beanstalks, which help in reaching new areas, including one where a piece of heart is located in the courtyard. The page also warns about enemies in underground tunnels and suggests using Deku flowers and bubbles to defeat enemies in certain areas, such as defeating Deku scrubs with bubbles from beanstalk platforms. This guide outlines steps in The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. It covers Sonata of Awakening, requiring Deku Flower use to access a cage in the central garden, where Link meets Mr. Monkey, wrongfully accused and needing rescue. Head to Woodfall, instructs players to learn the Sonata of Awakening, utilize Deku Flowers, and travel to Woodfall. Get the Mask of the Great Fairy, recommends obtaining the Great Fairy Mask in Clocktown North before going to the Great Fairy Fountain. The guide emphasizes using the map, moving counterclockwise in Woodfall, and being careful with Deku Flower jumps. The Great Fairy Mask is located in a treasure chest within the heart-shaped area of Woodfall. Gameplay tips include bubble attacks for enemies and reaching location A, marked by an owl statue and Deku nut symbol. This page showcases The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, highlighting different gameplay aspects. It mentions that the game is still at the beginning, and that a long and enjoyable adventure awaits. The page features sections such as Goron Link's Adventure, showing screenshots of Goron Link in snowy and lava areas, indicating dungeon locations with lava rocks. Another section is Zora Band Dal Blue, announcing the band's name and mentioning a live performance poster in town. The animal section discusses various creatures Link encounters, including dogs outside towns, frogs, chickens, and cows, questioning what kind of story they offer. A female pirate vs Zora Link highlights a battle scenario, noting that while Gerudo and Zora were allies in the previous game, this time they might be enemies, suggesting Zora Link will be advantageous in this fight. Finally, vs Gyai Bone Soldier, likely referring to stall children or similar skeleton enemies, mentions that enemy movements are unpredictable and tricky, emphasizing the evolution of combat. This page delves into what the developers of The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask newly focused on. It mentions that until just weeks before release, they were playing a near-complete sample version, and were very eager to see how the game would unfold after the previous title, Ocarina of Time. The article discusses user expectations, including how the 20-plus masks would be used, and what new dungeon gimmicks were prepared. It highlights that many users had similar expectations, wanting a Space World-style adventure. However, the developers realized that simply building on the established system wouldn't be enough. They focused on creating a new game system as the core element of Majora's Mask. They aimed to surpass expectations by focusing on elements beyond just the familiar Zelda formula. The article explains that the 3-day system and the concept of a parallel world were created to effectively deploy this new system, mentioning the moon falling and the notebook system as integral parts of this. The developers wanted to create a completely new land to explore, unlike simply continuing to live in the world established in Ocarina of Time. The page includes screenshots showing gameplay, such as Link using a bombchu in a bowling alley setting, Link underwater, and a close-up of Link with his shield. This page is an advertisement for The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask on the Nintendo 64. It features the iconic Majora's Mask prominently in the center, surrounded by various characters from the game. The text highlights the game's concept of encountering mysterious people during Link's 3-day quest, emphasizing the game's core premise. Several screenshots showcase gameplay moments and dialogues, giving glimpses into the game's world and characters. The bottom of the page details the game's specifications as an action RPG for one player, and mentions that it requires the Memory Expansion Pack. It lists 2 purchase options: the game with the Memory Expansion Pack for 7,800 yen, excluding tax, and the game cartridge alone for 5,800 yen, excluding tax. The advertisement also includes the Nintendo and Nintendo 64 logos and copyright information. This page is from the Dream Hint Book 4 for The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. It includes a spoiler warning advising players that the book contains specific gameplay hints, recommending caution for those who want to solve the game on their own. The page provides game details like the title, The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, for the Nintendo 64, published by Nintendo and currently on sale. The price was 5,800 yen for the cartridge alone, or 7,800 yen with the Memory Expansion Pack. The game is categorized as a 3D action RPG for a single player, designed for the Memory Expansion Pack and compatible with the Rumble Pack. There are 6 artwork panels showcasing characters and scenes from The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. The bottom text explains that these illustrations are sized to be used as labels for MD cases, and you can cut them out and stick them on. It apologizes for not being stickers and suggests color copying or buying another magazine if you don't want to cut up the page. This is from the September issue of the 64 Dream magazine. This page from a guide for The Legend of Zelda, Majora's Mask, is titled Moon Inside Hide-and-Seek Dungeon and is part 13 of the guide. It highlights the final battle with Skull Kid, questioning if the player can welcome the morning of a new day after the long 3 days in Termina. Step 1 instructs players to play the Oath to Order after collecting heart pieces from the 4 temple bosses. It advises going to the clock tower at midnight and playing the song. Step 2 guides players to talk to the masked boy inside the moon, stating that grasslands and masked children are there. It explains that talking to the 4 masked children will initiate hide-and-seek dungeons. It mentions that while these dungeons are optional, completing all 4 allows players to obtain the powerful Fierce Deity Mask. The page then focuses on the Deku Nuts dungeon, providing a map and instructions. It details using Deku flowers to navigate the dungeon, avoiding spiky obstacles. The guide specifies that you must use Deku flowers to jump between rotating pillars and reach the exit, warning of spiky thorns that cause damage. This page is about dungeon or dungeon strategy for The Legend of Zelda, Majora's Mask. It showcases walkthroughs for 3 dungeons: Goron Dungeon, Zora Dungeon, and Link Dungeon. For each dungeon, there is a map layout with numbered points indicating the progression path, along with screenshots and text instructions in Japanese describing how to navigate and solve puzzles within those dungeons. The Goron Dungeon section provides guidance on using Goron Link's rolling ability to traverse jump platforms and collect treasure chests. The Zora Dungeon section describes how to use Zora Link's swimming ability to navigate water currents and reach the exit. The Link Dungeon section details puzzle solutions involving enemies like Dinolfos and Gabbro, as well as using items like bombs and bows to activate switches and progress through the dungeon. It mentions using Bomb Chew and Arrows of Fire to activate eye switches. The page gives step-by-step instructions for each dungeon, highlighting key locations and actions needed to complete them. This page is about obtaining masks in The Legend of Zelda, Majora's Mask. It highlights the Fierce Deity's Mask as the strongest mask, and explains how to acquire it by completing all 4 dungeons in a single playthrough, and then speaking to the mask salesman under the Deku Tree while wearing Majora's Mask. The page features a section titled How to Get Masks, which lists several masks and provides instructions on obtaining them. Examples include the Postman's Hat, the All-Night Mask, the Blast Mask, the Stone Mask, and many more. It also includes notes about the Fierce Deity's Mask, mentioning its powerful attack, and that it can only be used in boss rooms and the final battle. It also notes that the mask names listed alongside locations indicate where to get them. This guide details the final battle against Majora's Mask in The Legend of Zelda, Majora's Mask, a 3-stage fight with 2 transformations. Stage 1, Majora's Mask, benefits from Zora Link's Boomerang and the Mirror Shield, obtained by defeating the 4 dungeon bosses. Stage 2, Majora's Incarnation, favors Goron Link's rolling and punches, or, if magic is low, Link's spin attacks. Stage 3, Majora's Wrath, involves blocking attacks with the shield, using light arrows from a distance, and then sword attacks. The guide emphasizes the advantage of completing dungeon boss fights beforehand. Additionally, the guide lists various masks obtainable throughout the game, detailing how to acquire them through in-game events and quests, including Romani's Mask, Kafei's Mask, and the Giant's Mask. This guide, from a Bomber's Notebook, details a quest in Majora's Mask, focused on making Anju happy, requiring the Mask of Couples. It emphasizes the importance of this specific questline, separate from main game objectives. The process begins with obtaining Kafei's Mask. The guide then details the steps over 3 in-game days. Key events include meeting Anju at 11:30 p.m. in the inn kitchen, midnight rendezvous, after receiving a letter around noon. Another critical step involves waiting in the kitchen to receive Kafei's letter around midnight. The guide provides related context, highlighting the timeline of letter delivery, Anju's routine, and obtaining the inn key. Finally, it warns of conflicting events, specifically, the Sakan bandit chase. Protecting Bakery Grandma's luggage jeopardizes the wedding event, requiring players to choose between the 2. This page is from a strategy guide for The Legend of Zelda, Majora's Mask, and outlines steps for a side quest involving Kafei. Step 3 instructs players to obtain Kafei's letter and post it in any mailbox immediately, noting that the postman's collection times are important to consider. Step 4 details going to the back entrance of the curiosity shop from the laundry pool after 3 p.m. to receive Kafei's letter, and suggests peeking through a hole to observe events within, hinting at adult themes. Step 5 guides players to return to the Stockpot Inn and give Anju the Pendant of Memories, providing time frames for different outcomes, including the consequences if the pendant isn't given. Step 6 explains how to infiltrate Sakan's hideout on the final day by going to Ikana before 6 p.m. and waiting with Cafe for Sakan to arrive, with a mention of a stolen goods box only Sakan can open. The page also describes 2 methods for delivering the express to Mother, either directly to Aroma at the milk bar after 6 p.m. using Romani's mask, or via the postman, with the latter option rewarding the postman's hat. Finally, it mentions obtaining a piece of heart by using the Keaton mask to cut moving grass in Clocktown or Milk Bar area, triggering a quiz from Keaton which must be answered correctly. This Bombers Member Handbook page details clearing Sakan's hideout in Majora's Mask and obtaining the couple's mask, crucial for the true ending. Step 7 explains navigating the hideout's 3 rooms using both Cafe and Link, manipulating switches and conveyor belts. Step 8 follows the hideout's completion, detailing Cafe's return and a timed sequence. Meet him in Anju's room at the inn when the timer is at 2 o'clock. Enter at 1:30 to receive the couple's mask. The guide references the Bomber's Notebook for hideout hints. It also lists items obtainable from Anju, Cafe's mask, Pendant of Memories, etc., and Cafe's letter, Garo mask, hookshot, etc., emphasizing the couple's mask's significance. This guide details various side quests in Majora's Mask and the items they reward. Players can obtain the Keaton mask and Mother's letter from the mask shop Old Man. The postman yields a heart piece and the postman's hat. The Rosa sisters give a heart piece for dancing with Kamaro's mask. Anju's grandmother rewards 2 heart pieces for listening to stories. Kamaro provides Kamaro's mask after hearing the Song of Healing. Nade Kuro-san grants a bunny hood. The Gorman brothers provide Gebro's mask for racing and milk delivery. Todo-san offers a boss mask for playing instruments. Gorman, likely the same as before, also provides a boss mask. Shirokun gives the stone mask. Guru-Man gives the Bremen mask. This page is from a staff interview titled, The Last Story of Majora's Mask. It delves into the creation of the Anju and Cafe wedding event in The Legend of Zelda, Majora's Mask. The interview discusses how the wedding event originated from a staff member's wedding and evolved into a key element of the game, influenced by the idea of a missile potentially falling and the theme of Doomsday. Staff members Koizumi and Imamura are quoted discussing the event's development and the idea of making the player wonder if Cafe is returning as an adult or child in the ending scene, leaving it open to interpretation. Another section, Totsen's Birth Secret Story, explores the origins of the character Tot. It explains that Tot was initially based on a scenario involving the character Doll Blue and was designed with a carnival-like band concept in mind. The interview also mentions the idea of Tot being a business world-like man initially, which later evolved into a more unique design thanks to the designers. The page also includes screenshots from the game, one showing Cafe in his cursed form with the text, "Promise I couldn't keep it," and another showing Link interacting with Tot, where Tot asks, "How's it going lately? How is your Hylian relaxation?" This last line is noted as a phrase that might become popular among people in the industry. Portraits of staff members Koizumi Yoshiaki, game system director, and Totsan are also featured. This page highlights staff dreams that became scenes in the game, specifically for Majora's Mask. It mentions the Majora's Mask form being realized in the game. There are interviews with 2 staff members, Takano Mitsuhiro, the script director, born in 1967, and Imamura Takaya, the art director, born in 1966. The interviews discuss the concept of the adult Link mask and the giant Link mask in Majora's Mask. They mention that originally, the adult Link transformation was intended to be a minor element, but it became more significant. The giant mask was also developed, but due to its size being too large for gameplay, they decided to differentiate it and create the Oni mask, fierce deity mask. The page also includes screenshots from Majora's Mask showing Link battling enemies and using the giant mask, along with character artwork of Link and another creature, possibly related to the game's art direction. An interview with game developers Koizumi and Imamura discusses the creation of the Moon World in Majora's Mask. Initially undecided, the moon's design drew inspiration from 2001: A Space Odyssey and Space Battleship Yamato, aiming for a strange and unusual atmosphere reflecting the game's core themes. The developers focused on mask collection, with players gathering 20 masks, symbolized by holes filling the moon. The serious dialogue of children in the moon world, contrasting with the fantastical setting, was intentionally thought-provoking, echoing themes of questioning the hero's actions from Link's Awakening. They aimed for a surreal experience, leaving the interpretation open to players. Screenshots showcase the game's world and user interface. This page discusses the game design philosophy behind The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, and how the concept of strategy guides doesn't quite fit with the intended player experience. The developers aimed to create a game where players would be immersed in the world and characters, rather than just focusing on or walkthrough style gameplay. They wanted players to engage with the side events and characters, leading to different endings depending on player choices and involvement. The movie Run Lola Run is mentioned as an inspiration for the game's system, specifically the time loop mechanic and multiple endings. The page also touches upon the ending music, revealing a detail about the Saria's song music played during the staff credits. It clarifies that Saria is the one who taught the song to the Skull Kid, explaining the connection in the game's ending. This page reveals the results of a popularity poll for The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask characters, voted for by readers of 64 Dream magazine. It's a character popularity ranking, with Link taking the top spot, followed by Cremia in second place and Kafei in third. The text highlights that Link's first place is expected, but the ranking order from second place down is considered surprising and interesting. The popularity of Anju is also mentioned, suggesting she is seen as a leading female character. Following the top three are Anju, Oni Link, Postman, Tingle, Deku Link, Zora Link, and Romani rounding out the top 10. The page also lists characters ranked from 11th to 28th, including characters like the Masks, Lulu, Mikau, Deku Princess, Epona, Tattle, Skull Kid, Stray Fairy, the Old Man from the Curiosity Shop, and even Full Time Toilet Hand in 20th place alongside Guru Guru. Other listed characters include Ikana King, Odolwa, Stalkita, Majora's Incarnation, Jabba's, Keaton, the Monkeys, Sirokun, and Kamaro. The page features character artwork for the top 10 ranked characters to visually represent the results. This page showcases popularity rankings from a Japanese guidebook for The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. It covers favorite masks, areas, and music in the game as voted by readers. In the favorite masks category, the bunny hood takes the top spot, praised for its speed boost. The powerful Fierce Deity's mask is second. And surprisingly, Kamaro's mask, known for being somewhat useless, comes in third, appreciated for its Zelda-like feel. Other masks listed in order of popularity are the Couple's Mask, Stone Mask, Great Fairy Mask, Deku Mask, Zora Mask, Postman's Hat, and Bremen Mask. For favorite areas, Romani Ranch is number 1, highlighted for its ranch setting and events. Clocktown is second, noted for the various events happening there, and Zora Hall comes in third, with a mention of Daru Blue's popularity. Other areas listed are the Moon, Deku Palace, Termina Field, Pork Bean Shop, Stone Tower Temple, Icona Castle, and Clock Tower. Lastly, in favorite music, the Song of Healing ranks first, admired for its orchestral arrangement. Termina Field's theme is second, recognized as a familiar tune from the series, and the Song of Time is third. Other music tracks listed are the Seaside Great Bay theme, Epona's Song, Song of Storms, Sonata of Awakening, Deku Palace theme, Song of the Windfish, and Elegy of Emptiness. Screenshots accompany each section, showing in-game scenes related to the rankings. This page is titled, Ah, I See, Misconceptions, Complete Collection. It features a compilation of player anecdotes and common mistakes people made while playing The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. The page humorously presents these misunderstandings with screenshots and brief descriptions. Some examples include players believing Deku flowers needed to be watered to grow bigger. Quote, trading fish and Zora eggs at the port in the Ocean Research Lab, using bombs to defeat the Stall Children ghosts in the graveyard. Quote, throwing bombs into the sea to get fish. Quote, Goron Link's rolling attack was based on the baby Goron size, using the hookshot to pull Mikau closer to help him. Quote, the toilet paper needed to be actual paper material, so giving a Deku stick. The H2O given by Gibdo in the well meant H is 2 people. Freezing water with ice arrows for going on top of the water. calling the monkey a banana upon seeing it, and trying to give it a tree. The page concludes with a playful tone, expressing amusement at these player misunderstandings and thanking players for sharing them.